Good morning, folks. We have an amazing show for you today. I am going to leave you smiling. I promise. Stick with me through the whole show. You're going to leave this show smiling. I promise you. So let's get to it. Refill your mugs, grab your coffee, grab a pen and paper for the round table. We're going to have a good round table discussion at the end of the show. I'm going to try to keep it moving pretty quick today. Because we've got the hard cap limit. I don't like to spill over into the Tony Michaels or Hal Sparks show. So let's try to keep things moving. Let's do it. Well, Dave here says he's got a mug full of hot tea and he is raring to go. I'll allow it. I am a fan of tea. So good for you, Dave. Oh man, I tell you what, that coffee's good this morning. I hope your coffee's as good as mine. Somebody was asking me what is that coffee I like to drink that I like that's a treat. I want you people to get you some of this. It's Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee. It's not uber expensive. It's not like Kopi Luwak. Get you some, man. Get yourself some. Treat yourself. Y'all remember old Paul Harvey? Are you old enough to remember Paul Harvey and the rest of the story? Now I'm coming out with a new segment called What's Going On? What's going on? Because I am really, really tired of the corporate media. If you're watching the corporate media today, they are either trying to give the Republicans credence in shutting down the government, or they're trying to talk to you about John Fetterman's hoodie. Oh, hey, I wanted to ask you, by the way, I want to send John Fetterman a Texas Paul hoodie. What do you think? What do you think? I think we should. I think he'd wear it. I do. I do. We're gonna send John Fetterman a Texas Paul hoodie. I got to find out his exact size. That ain't gonna be a cheap hoodie. I promise you. That man is 6'7". 6'7". Anyways, let's talk about what's really going on. Joe Biden just gave an amazing speech at the United Nations. Just an amazing speech at the United Nations. It was something, folks. It really was. It was good. It was good. If you have a chance to go back and watch it, do. I mean, he really did rally support behind Ukraine. He really did bring, our interests and our diplomatic efforts to the forefront. Because folks, this is why our international audience is so informed here, because the news media worldwide isn't like our news media. They aren't. They're not doing this nonsense, this chasing profits, they just don't do it, folks. They just don't do it. A lot of our European audience gets a lot more real information than we do, and they know what's going on. For instance, if you listen to the corporate media, Joe Biden's old. Everybody's upset Joe Biden's old. That's all they talk about, folks. It is all they talk about. I'm telling you. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. But what's really going on? After Joe Biden gave an amazing speech rallying support for us and Ukraine and efforts in Europe. That's important. We're going to talk about that. He met with Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He had a diplomatic blitz, folks. He met with Secretary General Guterres to talk about Africa primarily because of what's been going on in Africa. It is a mess down there, and I'll explain why here in a minute. Then he had what is probably the most important summit that will happen for the rest of the Biden presidency, and you didn't hear a peep about it. Not a word. Not a word. Yesterday, Joe Biden held a summit with the C5+1. Now, most people don't even know what the C5+1. That's the Central European countries plus us. You're talking about Tajikistan, you're talking about Kyrgyzstan, you're talking about Turkmenistan, you're talking about Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, the Central Asian country. You know me. I'm going to the map. I'm going to go to the map. 1 second. This is where we're talking about. You remember Philip Ittner and I talking about Taiwan and how everybody's talking about China's going to invade Taiwan, and we both no, they're not. No, they're not. Yeah, China's pissed off about Taiwan. Imagine if Cuba was the world's largest manufacturer of semiconductors, and they loved Russia, and Russia's economy was booming and outperforming ours because Cuba and their contributions to Russia's economy. That would piss us off a little bit. It's like, look, man, you're right off our coast. It would, but would we invade Cuba over it? No, we wouldn't. No, we wouldn't. I mean, you have to look at the big picture, folks. And China is not going to invade Taiwan. I want you to let me zoom in on this map a little bit. This is the most important region in the world right now. This is Central Asia. Okay, you have Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan to the north, Kyrgyzstan to the east. You got Tajikistan down south. Yeah, the reason this region is so important, folks, and I'll give you an idea where it is. This is the Caspian Sea. You heard Philip Ittner and I talking about the Caspian Sea and the oil fields in the Caspian Sea. This is the Black Sea next door where Ukraine is at. This is Central Asia, north of India, west of China, north of Afghanistan. And I know what you're saying, folks. I know what you're saying. Well, the stands, don't the stands hate us? No, actually, they don't. The C5 loves us. They absolutely love us because there is a massive power vacuum in Central Asia right now. Russia used to have dictatorial control over Central Asia. They did. During the Cold War, they ran everything and with an iron fist. And as Moscow does, whenever they're in a country, everything goes back to Moscow. All of the resources go back to Moscow. Oh, man, that coffee's good. Man, I hope your coffee's good. So Joe Biden, wisely, because there is a power vacuum now in Central Asia. They are in open revolt of Russia. And again, let me show you why. It's things like this. Russia, they're brutal when they control a country. They're just brutal. Folks, this is the Aral Sea. The Aral Sea was the fourth largest freshwater lake in the world. I mean, think about, Lake Victoria in Africa, or think about it's on par with Lake Michigan, folks. And the Russians drained it, just decimated it. It was a massive part of the economy in Central Asia. It straddles Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. It right along the border there. Got a good comment there from Benaloco. Thank you. Do you want to make a difference? Shut off the damn cable. It's the 21st century and cable is amen, sister. Amen, sister. I'm with you. That's why I'm telling you what's going on. All right. Why are we talking about the RLC? Why are we talking about the RLC? Because that's what Russia did in Central Asia. There's massive pollution, ecological disasters, radioactive pollution. The Cosmodrome, the Soviet Cosmodrome, their space program used to be based out of Kazakhstan. They left massive amounts of radioactive pollution behind in Kazakhstan. And Central Asia said, enough, enough. I mean, look at what they did to the RLC, folks. I mean, this is the RLC in 2014. You're talking about a lake the size, pardon me, in 1989 on the left, in the 1980s during the height of the Cold War. Talking about a lake the size of Lake Michigan. And then 2014 on the right. They dammed the rivers that fed the RLC, the Amu Darya and the Sir Darya rivers. They dammed them both for agriculture, so that they could take grain out of this region. Again, because Russia is just brutal when it comes to control. They were dictatorial. This is what's left of the RLC today. These are satellite images from today. I mean, it's just a disaster. And these people are done with it. And Joe Biden wisely is holding summits with these leaders because there's a power vacuum there, and China is desperately rushing. Remember, China is just to the east of these countries. They have land roads that connect to these countries. They're close, folks. But these people see what China is. They see what Fiji, everybody's heard of Fiji. They see what China has done everywhere it has influence. The island of Fiji, China wined and dined them. They came in. They took their police departments. They gave them computers, showed them facial recognition software and technology that just impressed the hell out of the Fiji police department and government. They brought the Fiji police department back to China and trained them, gave them this software, gave them the technology, all the while the government's allowing China to move in. Well, China just had a crime occur a few months back, and it was an online scam. And the people that perpetrated the online scam were in Fiji. Well, a bunch of Chinese police officers showed up in Fiji and rounded up Fiji citizens and just took them. And the Fiji government says, whoa, wait a minute, these are our citizens. You can't do that. And China said, we did. We own this island now. So you've got Central Asia looking at that. Looking at the way China acts, looking at the way Russia treated them. And they're going into a new century, folks. And they're like, you know what? America's really not that bad. And Joe Biden is like, hey, we're here. We'll work with you. We'll give you security guarantees. We'll do business with you. We won't overrun your country and tell you how you have to do everything. We're not a colonial power. That's not what we do. We do business. Is the press telling you that Joe Biden is doing any of this? Because I guarantee you, if you want a future with clean energy, you need the minerals that are in Central Asia. You have to have them. You know, all those minerals that everybody was worried about in Afghanistan, northern Afghanistan, they're all over Central Asia. And we would like access to those. We don't have to own them, at least let us buy them, because the Russians won't. The Russians will just take them for themselves. And they know it. So this is what Joe Biden's doing. But what is the corporate press telling you? Joe Biden's old. Joe Biden's old. Yeah, it's ridiculous, folks. It is just ridiculous. That's why I need you here, and that's why I need you helping me expand this audience, folks. Tell a friend, get people in this audience. We've only got 651 people watching today. That's it. We need to get more people in here so they can see this, because let me tell you, what's going on in Central Asia is far from what is happening in the world. And the Biden administration is doing the work. Let me introduce you to someone. This is Sir Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer. This is the next Prime Minister of Britain. You know, the UK, when we were having Russia's influence here and they were affecting our election and they were getting Trump elected, they were also working in the UK, and they fed a bunch of nonsense to people, scared the hell out of them, and Brexit was the result. And the UK has deep regrets over Brexit. Deep regrets over Brexit because, right now, our economy is leading the world. It is leading the world. The European economy should have snapped out of COVID just as healthy and just aggressively as ours did, but it didn't. And a big part of the blame for that is Brexit. I mean, Brexit has been awful for the UK. The UK agriculture, especially, has been hit hard by Brexit. Well, Keir Starmer is the head of the Labour Party, and the UK hasn't had a Labour government since, I believe, 2010, 2011. Like I said, you've had Boris Johnson and then Rishi Sunak, and they're realizing that was a huge mistake. And they are rolling back. What Keir Starmer is promising is to roll back much of Brexit and slowly rejoin the European Union. And man, let me tell you something, the diplomacy is paying off. The diplomacy is paying off because you have France and Germany, which are wanting to rewrite the entire EU constitution to be more inviting, to invite in Ukraine, to invite UK back. You have, to improve the status of Northern European countries like Norway and Sweden. This is a 180-degree reversal in the positions of Germany and France, especially Germany. Germany was like, hey, everybody makes their bed, everybody sleeps in it. It's the way it is. We run the EU now. And boy, Germany has figured out with the Russian invasion of Ukraine that, you know what, maybe a strong, inclusive European Union is a good thing. And you know who's right there handshaking with them, helping them make that happen because stability is good for business? Joe Biden. Joe Biden is helping refacilitate a reintegration of the UK into Europe. Believe me, folks, we have more influence than you could ever imagine. And we know, we're not like Russia. We're not just like suck everything up and everything goes back to DC. That's not how we operate. I know the right-wing trash would like us to operate that way, but it's stupid. And later on today, you're going to have President Biden is going to meet with President Lula in Brazil. from Brazil. One of the most important emerging economies in the world. And Joe Biden's doing the work, folks. Joe Biden is doing the work. Getting it done. You're right, E.T. This is what the Republicans want for us. And later on today, Joe Biden is even holding his nose and meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. These two men hate each other. They do. But Joe Biden is the grown-up in the room. You don't see him out making stupid comments about Netanyahu like Trump did all over the world, getting laughed at the UN. You don't see that. That's what Democrats are doing, folks. And I told you, I'm going to make you smile. That's what Democrats are doing. I want you to think about that. Poland, when they took the podium at the UN, they weren't talking about the war. They were talking about grain. They were talking about agricultural deals. That's the world we're back in. We're not all talking about Putin's fantasies. Putin's a dead man. Putin is a dead man, and Russia will collapse over the next 2 years. It just will. Everybody that they have, that their economy relies on, are bolting from them as hard as they can. And everybody realizes it. Everybody realizes it. And yes, thanks, Artside. Artside says Netanyahu is a right-wing extremist too. Netanyahu is another Trump, is what he is. He's a wannabe dictator for life, and he doesn't live in reality. He doesn't live in reality. Now, I want you to compare this, folks. I want you to compare this to the Republicans. I do. I want you to compare this to the Republicans. You've got Sue Kelsey says this is a favorite place to go and learn while enjoying comments and information. I appreciate that, Sue Kelsey. I do appreciate that. I want you to compare this. Okay. Here's Keir Starmer. Labor, left of center. This is where every major government in the world is going. They've had enough of guys like Rishi Sunak. Here in the United States, we've had enough of these billionaire jerk-offs playing government, playing social engineering. That's where everything's moving, folks. That's the direction everything's going. You've got the Club for Growth. And I keep telling you about the Republicans have all these billionaires. They have all these billionaires. They even have their own frat club, the Club for Growth, that are in full freakout mode. They are. They're backing out of the Republican primaries. They're pulling out their support in the Republican primaries because you've got the Club for Growth that's doing everything they can to destroy Trump because they're terrified of the monster they created. They're just terrified of him. So they're backpedaling right now. They're pulling out all that sweet ad money that our corporate news media sold its soul for. They're pulling it back. And it's their fault. The Club for Growth created Trump so they could get their tax cuts. Now they're terrified of him. The Club for Growth has spent $6 million trying to kneecap Trump because they know what happens in the next election. They're saying it out loud. Trump versus Biden, Biden wins, period. It doesn't matter how much money we throw at it, Biden wins. Trump is toxic, and nobody else in the primaries can take his place. They all hope that Pudding Fingers would be their guy, but they're all saying, come on, nobody's going to elect Asa Hutchinson. Nobody's going to elect Chris Christie. Nobody's going to elect Ron DeSantis. And Trump can't win. And if Trump's on the ticket, he destroys our majority, and there go our tax cuts. The billionaire class is in full freak out mode, and I am loving it, folks. I am loving it. They are funding, ET says they are frightened of Project 2025. Actually, they're funding Project 2025. They are. They are. Peter Campbell says, I encourage everyone to watch the speech of the Ukrainian president at the UN, a very powerful talk about the fight in Ukraine as a global fight against. I'm telling you, thank you for the comment. I appreciate the comment. I really do. Ukraine's going to win that war. There's no doubt about it. They're going to win that war. They're going to go into this winter far better than even I predicted they would. But no, I mean, Trump is toxic. He is toxic. And here's a major reason why. The billionaire frat boys are in full freak out mode. I want to introduce you to Molly Michael. Molly Michael was Trump's assistant when he was in the White House, and she went with him to Mar-a-Lago. She was his assistant um, as a private citizen working down in Mar-a-Lago. And she has ensured Trump will actually do prison time. Not just a slap on the hand and go away and none of that other stuff. She has ensured Trump is going to do prison time. Now, even though, Molly Michael is absolutely a Trumper. I mean, that's why she followed him down to Florida. She's a true believer, man. She took a look at that situation, and she said openly, she didn't understand any of this. It didn't make sense. Why are you doing this? These documents, everything is so easily provable. Why are you doing this? And eventually she just quit. She just quit. The FBI came in and raided, and they were, collected up all the documents. She's employee number 2 in the indictment. She is employee number 2. She's the employee that called the FBI back, because when she got back after the raid, she opened up her desk drawer. Oh, more classified documents. She called the FBI and said, you missed some. Come back and get them. She's also given testimony that the reason she had classified documents in her desk drawer is because the former president of the United States not only stole classified documents that he wasn't entitled to, but he was using them for scratch paper. Yep. He was using them for scratch paper. He would write notes for Molly Michael on the back, because he's too cheap to buy Post-its. He's too cheap to buy a ream of paper. He would handwrite notes on the back of classified documents. If you remember back, Trump, they couldn't do the presidential daily briefs with him. They couldn't do real briefings with him because he just couldn't pay attention that long. So they would put his name in big capital letters to get him to look down at the documents. And they didn't give him traditional briefing documents. They didn't do that. Most of his presidential daily briefs were on little cards so that they could get him to look at a graphic and see a couple bullet points, put his name in big bold print on a couple of them. Well, he stole the cards that contain classified information. He stole the cards. And he was using them for scrap paper and writing notes to Molly Michaels. This is all, she has sat down with Jack Smith and testified to this. He would give her to-do lists written on the back of these cards, stamped classified. And then it got worse, because when the FBI called Molly Michael in to testify, Trump pulled her aside and said, "You don't know anything about these boxes." Told her to lie to the FBI. Talk about a huge testimony to your understanding that you're guilty, is telling other people to lie about what they're investigating you for. And that, my friends, is the worst of it for Trump. Because any jury understands that if you're telling your employees to lie to the FBI, which is a crime, you're instructing your employees to cover for your crimes. You know their crimes. You know you're guilty. And then to top it all off, you've got Jack Smith, who is just brilliant. I mean, I love the charges he brings are simple and straightforward. You notice they're not bringing the sexy, treason charges, the insurrection charges. They're bringing the stuff that's straightforward. Here's the documents. Here's pictures of where we found them. He did it. He told people to lie about it. He was misabusing them. He was handing out classified documents to people that he was writing notes on the back of them and then just giving classified documents away to people. I mean, he's got him. He's got him by the gonads. And there's nothing Trump can do about it. There's nothing Trump can do about it. So where does that leave us? I mean, you've got the Republican Party. You got, Marge, who's sitting there having tantrums about what John Fetterman's wearing. I mean, really? I mean, really? Then all the stuff that was supposed to destroy Joe Biden, all the stuff that was supposed to destroy Joe Biden, all these whistleblowers, they've just humiliated themselves. And now we're back to another government shutdown. And the Republicans are factionalized. They're in disarray. You've got Kevin McCarthy, who just wants something, anything. Please, Joe Biden, pretty please, just give me anything that I can call a win, and I will pass this continuing resolution. No problem. I'll give you the votes you need with the Democrats to pass it. I mean, he's just desperate for it. Then you've got the hardliners that are like, if we don't get everything we want, we're going to shut the government down until they give it to us. They're going to pull a Tommy Tuberville, doesn't want the military rooting out white supremacists, so we're going to just shut all promotions down. You've got an entire faction of the Republican Party that's there. Karen Lori says his use of documents as scrap paper shows his utter lack of respect for our military, our security, and our country. Get him, Jack. I agree with you, Karen. I agree with you. That's a Karen I like right there. That's a Karen I like. So yeah, I mean, you've got the Republican Party in utter and complete disarray. You've got Lauren Boebert, one of their superstars, is out there giving handsies in a theater at a play geared toward kids. And she's supposed to be one of their superstars. You know, the Freedom Caucus. She's their face, man. She is the face of the Freedom Caucus. And she's out there giving people a handsy at a play geared towards children. Family values, folks. Family values. And their talking points are just falling apart left and right. Remember Richmond, north of Richmond? Who's that in that picture right there? Is that Robert Kennedy with the singer of Richmond, north of Richmond? Really? Huh. I guess a guy born into fabulous wealth from Massachusetts, and the last time I checked, Massachusetts was well north of Richmond, doesn't count. I mean, it's a joke. Everything they do is a joke, and they're crumbling and falling apart in front of our face, and the entire world is seeing it. Thank you, Noemu, for backing me up there. Massachusetts is definitely north of Richmond. I thought it was. Last time I looked at a map, Massachusetts was well north of Richmond, and the Kennedys were born with platinum spoons in their mouths. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I do have a question. I want to back up a little bit to Bobo. I've got a question. What she did in that theater is a crime. It is. It's a crime. Lewd fondling in public is a crime in Denver and the state of Colorado. If we're going to charge Hunter Biden with a gun crime, when he bought a gun, he owned it for 11 days. His sister-in-law, he willfully surrendered it to his sister-in-law, never bought bullets for the damn gun, didn't use it in any crime. But they're going to charge him with that, which never gets charged. Okay. Do the crime, do the time. Bobo committed a crime in that theater, and it's on tape. And she did it feet away from children. I think it's time we start calling the Denver District Attorney's Office, don't you? Yeah, that's the other thing that I've got that's just scratching my head. I mean, if you're a Democrat, how do you date Lauren? Sorry. I'm sorry, I had a flash thought of touching Lauren Boebert. If you're a Democrat, how do you date Lauren Boebert? This guy runs a bar in Aspen. It's an LGBTQ plus friendly bar, and they hold drag shows there. How does this guy date Lauren Boebert? I mean, really. But you know, folks, there's good news. There's good news out there. The UAW, God bless them, is fighting hard. They're on strike. They're about to expand their strike. They very deftly did a targeted strike to begin with, not across the board strike. And they're working to get their payback. If you remember back in 2008 and the last Republican disaster, brought on by Bush, unions very much participated in the recovery of the auto industry. They set up a tier system. They didn't want to screw people that were already retired and relying on their income, so they set up a tier system for new employees coming in. There was no pension plan for them. They took massive pay cuts. They did so much. The workers said, hey, if our companies fail, we fail. As a union, they volunteered to take the pain to keep these companies going. And it worked. The domestic auto industry was rolling back, my friends. It was coming back. And then COVID hit. And unions were fighting to get what they'd given up back. But COVID hit, and they said, you know what? Whoa, wait a minute. If our companies fail, we fail. COVID is a disaster. So they backed off. They said, no demands during COVID. No demands during COVID. Well, we're economically at least past COVID. The domestic auto industry is rolling, making billions and billions in profit. And the auto workers, rightfully so, are saying, hey, you know what, guys? You're here because of us. We took the cuts. We took the pension cuts. We created the tier system so you could hire employees cheaper. That's what more do you want out of an employee? How can you be more of a team player? And so they're going back and they're saying, hey, look, you're doing great. We want to get rid of the tier system. New employees don't get handicapped. They don't have to work for a decade to catch up with the other employees. They're asking for a return to COLA. If you don't know what COLA is a cost of living allowance. It's when your factory, when you've got a blanket contract, you've got a factory that's in a place that's cheap to live, like down here in Texas, or you got a factory where it's expensive to live, like up in Detroit. The workers in Detroit will get a little something in their check to help cover the cost of living. That's COLA. A lot of people don't even know what that is because, workers' rights have been so deteriorated. Mary P says, oh, wait a minute, put that back. Mary P says, keeping unions strong keeps all workers strong. Amen, Mary. Amen. Because most workers don't even know what COLA is. Man, I hope your coffee's as good as mine. So that's the major thing they're working back. And then they're demanding job security during the EV transition. And boy, let me tell you, that's the sticking point. Everybody likes to say, oh, they demanded a 40% increase in pay. The UAW does not expect to walk out of this negotiation with a 40% increase in pay. They have no delusions. That's their opening demand. That's how you negotiate, folks. You ask for the world and you settle for reality. That's negotiations. And that's what the corporate news is running with. That's all they hear about. They want a 40% pay increase. No, they don't. They want a return of COLA. They want job security during the EV. That's the big sticker. Ford, the CEO of Ford, just came out and let the whole thing out of the bag. Because he said that demand job security during the EV transition, the transition to electric vehicles, because Ford wants to transition all of their vehicles to being electric vehicles, what that's really about is they want to phase out labor. They do. They want to phase out labor, as much of it as they can. You know, at Wharton and Harvard, they don't even teach their students that people are human. They don't. When you're a worker, you're an asset. You're a business asset to be managed. That's it. When you're a retiree, you're a liability. When you're a child, you're an investment. That's it. That's how they look at people. But God bless the UAW for standing up. They're human beings. They deserve. They took the cuts. They took the hits to help these companies, and these companies are rolling. These companies are charging $80,000 to $100,000 for a pickup truck, folks, that costs them $20,000 to $25,000 to make. They're making massive profits, massive profits, and the UAW deserves it. And what the unions win, we follow. So, where does that leave us? And I told you I'd leave you smiling. Here it goes, folks. And this is going to seem counterintuitive. Between now and the 2024 election, 1 million people in this country are going to die, mostly from old age. But they're mostly going to be Republican voters. If you do the math on it, the Republican Party stands to lose between 500,000 and 700,000 voters between now and 2024. The Democratic Party, over that same year, will gain 4 million Gen Z voters, about 70% of which are going to vote Democrat. Why? I mean, why are the younger generations so different? Well, they didn't live through what we lived through. You know, Gen X, if you think back, I mean, and boomers, if you think back, we were forged in the 80s. We saw things. We saw, you know, back in the 70s. You know, I'm pro-union, but I'm not delusional. I'll tell you when the union screwed up. Back in the 70s, Mr. Honda showed up in our market with a little car called the Civic. Mr. Toyota showed up with a Corolla. And that stranglehold of big cars. Take a look at an 80s Thunderbird or an LTD or a town car. And look what the Japanese were making. Great cars. They were making great cars. And the American car market was tanking because of it. Just to Cliff's Notes it. And we saw in the 70s unions just be greedy. They were like, we want massive pay no matter what. And the executives are like, we're dying. Do you understand that? We're dying. We're getting killed. We have to retool to make smaller cars. We're dying. And the unions were like, nope, pay us, sucker. And most of people in Gen X turned against unions. We did. Plus, you had the 1980s, which was the greed is good, conspicuous consumption generation. That's when we saw our news turn from news to propaganda. But we grew up thinking news was news. That's why so many people in our generation bought the BS that Reagan was selling. even though the numbers didn't match up. Well, millennials and Gen Z didn't go through any of that. They look at what's going on today through fresh eyes. You ever wonder why so many Gen X, we said we weren't going to be our parents, and 60% of us grew up to be just like our parents. Um, if you wonder why, that's why. I mean, they saw those things. We were forged in that era, and it has colored us to this day to still have this belief that corporations, have to succeed. If the corporations don't succeed, we don't succeed. So we need to defer to the corporations no matter what, because unions are bad and yada yada. A lot of us still carry that nonsense around. Millennials, Gen Z do not. They're looking around and they're saying, look, I got one party that's nuts. We got one party that's chasing fascism. We got one party that won't even, pay for our education like the rest of the world does. The rest of the world recognizes that if you got people that'll get the grades, educate them, it's good for your country. That's where these young folks are coming from. They're seeing, hey, you know what? When I was a kid, my dad took a pay cut to keep this car company open. And now that I'm an adult, they don't want to give him his payback. Exactly, Glenna. Exactly. Trickle down my ass. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about, folks. And those voters are coming out, are breaking hard left because they can just look around and see what's going on untainted by these ridiculous theories like trickle down economics. They don't have faith in executives. They just don't. They're just like, what's the real deal here? What am I getting for what I'm paying? And why is that guy, that billionaire, getting massive tax cuts and I'm getting tax increases? Who did that? Oh, yeah, the Republicans did that. Well, I'm voting Democrat then. And folks, that's what I'm telling you, folks. That's what I'm telling you. The entire world, and I told you to leave with a smile. The entire world, the UK's, they're done with it. They're done with it. Keir Starmer is going to be the next prime minister in the UK. He is. Europe is moving to be way more inclusive. The EU, they are. Look, we have an international audience. We have people here from Norway. We have people here from Sweden. We have people here from Germany. We have people here from all over the world. Ask them. They're in the chat right now. They will tell you the EU, this right of center stuff that Rishi Sunak and the Germans and we're all pushing. It's gone, folks. It's gone. You have the billionaires here in the United States freaking the hell out because they traded their souls for a tax cut and created a monster they cannot control and cannot support. That's just the way it rolls, folks. Everything is moving hard left. And because it is, look what's happening. You've got the Polish prime minister at the United Nations talking about grain deals. You've got Joe Biden engaged in diplomacy all over where it's important so that we can have business and stability throughout the world. That's what's really happening, folks. That's what's really happening. Well, folks, that's the end of my what I have to say. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear if you've gotten your mugs. Have you gotten your mugs? A lot of people have ordered them. Have you gotten them? Any questions you have about Central Asia? Any questions you have about what's going on in Ukraine? That Trump's gag order. He's filed a response to the gag order. And again, Jack Smith, he didn't go for a blanket gag order. He didn't do it. He went for a targeted gag order, and he's going to get it. And the beautiful part about that is, oh, look at that. Look at that. I love it, buddy. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I want to see those, man. I want to see them on social media too. I want to see the pics of those mugs. I want to see who got them. Make sure they got there okay and in one piece. But yeah, this gag order is just brilliant. Brilliant. Because it's not a blanket gag order. It's nothing that Trump's going to be able to use on an appeal. All right. Thank you, ET. Yes, please hit the thumbs up so that we can get this out. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. By the way, I forgot to mention this 2 shows in a row. We have broken over 20,000 subscribers. We are on our way, folks. We are on our way to being a massive program so we can tell people what's going on. What's really going on. Can't I get it? My mug came in and it's big enough for beer too. Yeah, I didn't like, if you're going to pay for something, you might as well get something. These are the big mugs. Donna Raitinen. Did I pronounce that right? Raitinen? American and Finland have been telling friends and family at home for 25 years that the government has not been working in their best interests. They were cruel for many years, but not now. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. 100%. I get it. I get it. And you've got these millennials and you've got Gen Z coming in. They're not tainted by that nonsense that we all heard. They just aren't. And they're not going to, it makes too much sense. Chris, tell me something, man. I'm going to talk about this in the next show. What have you been hearing about the Russian buildup on your border? Chris Waltalo says he says, I'm Finnish. Are you in Finland? And if you are, what have I've been following closely. The Russians have been moving troops to the Finnish border. What are you hearing about it in Finland? Foggy Ozark, I appreciate you, my man. You always come up. I appreciate you, man. You always come up with some great comments. You really do. Don't get me wrong. Lewd and lascivious can be fun sometimes and cute. Not a congressman or a woman. I don't care what their measurements are. Not on a congressman or a woman. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, man. She's supposed to be a congressman doing this. And I mean, my God, people, my God. If we're going to prosecute Hunter Biden for crimes that nobody gets prosecuted for, then damn it, we need to prosecute Lauren Boebert for crimes. I'm telling you, you need to be making phone calls. The Denver DA, you can Google it in 2 seconds. Their number, I Googled it for a video yesterday. I think I remember it, 720-913-9001, if I remember right. Double check me. Google the number. That's the Denver DA. Why is she not being charged with this crime? If we are going to prosecute people for things politically, why is she getting a pass? I appreciate you, ET. Thank you, man. Jesse, absolutely. I agree with you. Adam Frisch has already been working hard in that district. He got within 500 points in the last election. And if Boebert wins this next election, she gets a free retirement on us. She does. She gets her congressional retirement if she wins this next election. I think we can motivate 500 people to switch their vote. I do. I believe we're going to have more people turn out. What do you think? Do you think we're going to have more people? Well, look, folks, we've run out of time and we're against the hard limit. It's a Wednesday. I love you, folks. You'll have a wonderful day. I'll see you over at Hal. I'll see you over at Tony. Enjoy. Have a beautiful day, folks.